Alex, thank you so much for coming on. What we're looking to do with these videos is create a little bit of a sort of a how-to guide, because I think especially your case study, your experience going through this process of selling your home, there's probably things that you may have done differently in hindsight. And a lot of sellers or would-be sellers find these videos really useful, because what they can do is watch it, see where you learn from or what you learned doing the process and go through it. So firstly, just to give people an idea, what was your goal when you listed your house for sale and decided you were going to go through that process? What were you thinking?
Well, I think when we first sold our first house, it was quite an easy process. We put it up, they took good photos, did a nice 3D walk, and someone bought it, and it was really simple, like easy process.
Okay.
So we kind of thought that was going to happen again.
Yeah.
We went with the same company, but it was a different branch, but we thought it won't be a difference.
Yeah.
And then they came in. So far, process was fine. But then we saw the photos, and they weren't the best, but we thought, it's fine. Like,
they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, they know it way better than we do. And then, went live. And then we didn't really hear much viewings. And then they were saying, oh, it's the school holidays right now. Wait till September. That's when it will really start kicking in. September came. Nothing came.
Yeah. So
we thought this is a bit slow. So we said, look, could we just maybe rearrange the photos a bit, because they didn't look like the cover image wasn't good. So we said, could you rearrange it?
Yeah.
They didn't. And then we asked them. Oh, and then we also asked it to be a premium listing. They never did.
Okay.
So we had to ask them to do that, but they still never arranged the photos, and the photos did look really stale.
So what was your apprehensions going into this when you think you've got to speak to estate agents, solicitors, mortgage advisors perhaps? Was there any part of the story that you were sort of apprehensive about?
Probably the whole thing.
Yeah.
It is a lot.
It's a scary thing to do.
You've got to have, so many different people to all come together to get it to all work, basically.
Yeah.
I think, to be fair, the one bit I thought that would be the easiest would be, selling the house. I mean, not the easiest, but that's the.
You were never concerned that you wouldn't find a buyer.
I didn't think that would be the struggle personally. And I know my brother, he tried to sell his house and they ended up giving up because they couldn't.
Yeah.
So I was really worried we were going to head down that path too.
Okay, perfect. And what was the point? Because obviously you were on with one estate agent and then you swapped to us. What was the point when you realised, actually, no, we're going to change estate agent. We need to change direction here.
I think it was we didn't felt like we got listened to. Every time we asked a question, or not complained, but we're like, look, this hasn't been done. It felt like we got quite a sassy email back, It was like, and it almost felt like, look, we felt like we knew better than they did. Obviously we don't, but it felt like that. And they weren't the easiest or the politest to deal with. So it did get quite infuriating. And then my sister and brother-in-law, they started selling their house before us. Nope. But
after.
Yeah. My sister and brother-in-law sold their my sister and brother-in-law put up their house for sale after us. I can't remember how long, but I think it was like a month or longer. And they had, triple the viewings that we had in like a week. Sorry, they had in a week than we did in the entire time. So it just, something wasn't right. And we understood different locations, different house, got to be in play, but we thought surely it can't be
this far apart.
Yeah,
no,
it was
definitely. And I remember when your sister-in-law and brother-in-law said, and sort of first did the introduction, and I looked at it and I thought, well, I can't see how this is so different. I know that as you said, there were slightly different price points, slightly different areas, but I remember when I looked at it as an estate agent, I thought, well, it's only so different it can be. So how did you find the process in terms of once you'd changed and then we listed the house? I feel like we did quite a few viewings in a very short period of time.
Yeah, so once you guys came aboard, it was 9 day. The photographs were vibrant, looked amazing. much better quality. You did an amazing video intro, see the house, and the exposure before it even went live, was more than what we had, I think, the entire time when we were online, on Rightmove and all that. So it was definitely a lot better when you guys came in, and also it felt like every time we wanted to speak to you, it was I feel like as soon as I pressed send, there was 3 little dots popping up of you typing back. So it was very easy, and we were really happy with how like the whole house looked online and stuff like that, which I think was the reason it looked so appealing and why we ended up getting a good sale because of it.
So how did you choose the estate agent that you went with first time round?
So first time round we went with the same one that we used before. I think the first time was just via Google, but this is about 5-6 years ago.
Okay,
maybe more. And it was a simple process. Of course, no, that was sorry. It was just the same people that we used before, and the last place, it was fine. There were no complaints. We weren't singing and dancing, but it was
good enough.
Yeah,
they sold your house and it went through.
So we thought, I'm sure we'll be fine the second time round.
It's quite interesting because there's an industry stat that 8 in 10 people don't go back to the same estate agent that they either bought with or sold with previously. Usually, only 20% of people do, and that's usually because of service. Ultimately, they either don't think of them or felt like they didn't enjoy that process enough to go back to them. So it's quite interesting that you did, but then had what you perceive to be a very different service.
I mean, because we emailed the person that we used before, who was fine, and he was the franchise owner, which probably maybe helped as well why we got probably a better service. But then, so he put us in contact with Basingstoke's branch, and all seemed fine at the start. It's the same process at the start, really. You sign the contracts, they take the photos, they walk around the house and do all their thing. So we thought that'll be it. Perfect. But then once they all went online and stuff, we could see that there was a bit of difference, and a lot of things we asked them to change to make it more appealing, or even actually, for one big part of it is I'm sure they put up online that it was a 3-bedroom, not a 4-bedroom,
right?
Which would definitely probably change it, because it would just look like a really more expensive 3-bedroom house.
And when you look at the search criteria, when people are searching online, anyone searching for a 4-bed, which your home was, they wouldn't have seen your home.
Exactly.
And it's all about exposure. So you need the listings to look as good as possible.
Yeah.
And you need it to be accurately listed. Otherwise, you just lost X amount of people when you've listed, which ultimately is a major point. So obviously, as you've sort of had this experience where you've been on with one estate agent, changed and gone on with another estate agent, and we don't necessarily know what that other estate agent did, but you as the client have got a perception of what you enjoyed or didn't enjoy with the first estate agent to then what worked well with us. What do you think was the difference from your point of view that meant, we ultimately achieved the sale for you within a week or two?
Well, I think personal touch has got to be the biggest one. With the previous company that we used, we were dealing with so many different people at a time. Different people were coming to our house. So, you get someone that's never seen the house before showing around the house, which they're going to miss everything that we pointed out that makes the house, for us so great. So I think definitely the personal touch, the ease of communication, it wasn't via email with you guys. It was all through WhatsApp. So it was unbelievably fast to get a response. So I personally think it's the personal touch. And then of course you guys did the great photos. It made it look so much more appealing, bright, and kind of just showed off the house. How it actually looks. Yeah,
definitely. And I think it's probably scary how many viewings take place on a daily basis where the estate agent turning up to sell said house has never been to the house. And I think from the seller, you must lose so much value over. Most people buy a house for a set reason. There's something about it they love.
Exactly, yeah.
And that usually is a common theme throughout every time that house is sold, whether or not it's the location, the bedroom, something along those lines. And if that person's never seen that house before, they can't point that parts out. They're going to point the positives out. So I think that's something that works well. Now, how did you find the sale agreed to completion process? Because that part is usually the really stressful part. People find it stressful when perhaps their house hasn't sold and going through the viewings and getting their house ready for viewings, especially as a young family. But how did you find the process from sale agreed to completion?
Honestly, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah,
it was
good.
No, I tell it back. It was very good. It was fantastic. I mean, we had a child born, I think, the week before or something that we completed and exchanged. Yeah. So very stressful time. Very, it was very stupid of us to do this all at the exact same time, but it's just the way everything fell together. But you guys made it remarkably easy. Any questions? It felt like no stupid questions, and I'm full of them. So it was very nice,
because you don't do it very often.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is why we do videos like this, is because you learn so much going through this process, and you might not go through this process again for X amount of years.
I like to think so, but probably not.
Most people say that once they've gone through it. So in hindsight, if you could go back and do the process again, what advice or what tips would you give somebody who was just in your position, just about to look at selling their home? What advice would you give them? Personally,
I would just say give Avocado a call.
yeah, that's good. That's good.
Ask for Matt. But no, I think make sure you're 100% confident and happy with, what the estate agent have done, with the photos, with the the text that they write about the property. Make sure you get along with the people and you're confident that they'll be able to do it, because otherwise it is a lot more of a painful process to stop halfway through. But we were that sure that it was we were willing to cut the contract midway through after everything's been set up, just because they were terrible, and we I reckon if we stayed with them we would have sold the house for a lot less.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. That's really good advice, because that's what they don't know necessarily. When you're going into this process, having not sold ever or sold for the first time in 5 years, what to look out for and what you would have done differently is really, really good feedback for someone.
Because I think, at the end of the day, we are the one paying for the service, and, if, yes, you can trust them, it is their job, but, not everyone is, we saw those photos, we thought, yeah, they look fine, but then if we think they look fine and it's our house, which we love and have a connection to, people that don't love that or know that house, aren't gonna even think twice when they see those photos. So, or read the biography. So
yeah, definitely. And you put the seller's comments in, which
I
think a lot of people comment about that as to how personal it feels, and they feel like they get a little bit more of a connection to the home when it's not just a standard estate agent write-up that you get to be involved in.
I mean, you got to write really how why the house has made you feel, why is it so special. We were moving not because we hated the house, we loved the house, but we're going on to this new venture, so it was sad to depart of that, and then it felt really sad that no one was, the views were so infrequent, maybe once a week. I think we might have had one at max, because no one just could understand or feel what the house is like, because it wasn't doing justice on the internet.
And it's interesting that you had such infrequent viewings, and then there wasn't exactly a long gap between us taking up the marketing, and I think we must have had it was only 2 weekends of viewings ultimately.
It was we found it almost quite funny, because we just we went from having maybe once a week, and those viewings that we had, they weren't really even serious viewings either. One guy viewed it and then put such a low offer. We were like, obviously we can't do that. We'll be losing a lot of money. And then you guys took over, and then within I think a couple of days, it was every hour almost I was getting a text from you saying new booking.
Yeah.
I think blood crikey.
I remember making it live on a Friday, and then Saturday afternoon, I think like there was about 4 or 5 people, and I thought this is within 24 hours.
That was fantastic, because
it just didn't, it didn't add up from the story that you experienced previously. But ultimately, we've got this really clear blueprint that we follow this process, and we follow it because it ultimately gets the results.
And I think it shows as well, because we went from having no viewings except couple ones which weren't even really serious viewings to I can't remember how many we had, but loads within that short time. So it was obviously a huge change.
Perfect. So how did you hear about Avocado then?
So I heard the Avocado through my sister and brother-in-law, who started the process with you guys. I think they actually had an offer that they accepted before we even had like 4 or 5 viewings in ours, and we'd started before. So they recommended you guys. We gave you a call. You seemed fantastic, a lot more professional, a lot more personal, and it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, perfect. Good. So was there anything that surprised you during the process that happened that you thought, okay, that's not what I expected, but in a good way?
I think actually just going through Instagram and then seeing our house pop up on an advert probably was a surprising one, which it was nice. And it was great to see the video that you did to show around the house, because it adds that personal touch. You don't get it through photos. You don't get it through text. It's got to be through a video, I think. And you guys covered not just the house, but the area as well, which where we lived, I think was quite important, because we had so many children's parks around. It's fantastic for anyone with a family. Yeah,
I think the fact that the house fronted onto that green, but there was nowhere in the previous listing that mentioned it at all. And I thought that was one of the, for so many families, that would be such a selling point. And obviously we've covered a lot of advice for potential home movers. What about any estate agents that are watching this? Based on the experience you've had, what advice would you give them as to how to make this industry better?
I think listen to the clients more. If you take the photos of the house and you don't think it looks, it does the house justice, then I think you need to go back and retake them. I think doing the intro videos is really good because it gives that personal touch. The drone shot as well, as we said before, it shows the parks around, which you would have never known. So, you guys are embracing technology and just giving the whole story to the house.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's very rare that a house is bought or sold just because of the house. It's usually the other parts that you can't change. When you look at a house, there's quite often you can change something about that house, whether or not you do an extension, decorate, change the kitchen. The area is the area. And that is ultimately the difference between why they should buy where you were living or going for a house in a completely different area where they might not have got all the benefits. So I think the area is probably one of the most important, especially for where you were, one of the most important selling points. And
you can't tell through photos of, even what's next to the house. You see the house pictures, but, you would have, I think if it wasn't you, no one else, you would have seen that there's a nice park, there's a nice pathway.
And if you didn't live where close to your house, you just wouldn't have known. I mean, the buyer we ended up finding was very, very close to the house. But for the viewers that weren't, they would always find bits like that really, really beneficial.
And also, it filled us with confidence as well, because before, I think we probably would have taken a lot less offer, because we would be like, we're just clearly got to be lucky for what we can get. But then once we started having all these viewings and stuff, we were like, actually, okay, we can actually, be a lot more confident and with, and believe in the house that, we fell in love with, and, the next people can. So it just felt like when we got the offer in, we didn't feel like we had to settle for a price, which was also great.
No, definitely. And I think that's the job of the estate agent, right? Is to make sure that they're adding value. And previously you felt like, as you just said, you may have taken an offer less than what the house was worth in order to have a means to an end. You wanted this process to be over. You wanted to move on to the next step, which is fine, but we needed to make sure that you were still getting the best price.
Yeah.
Which is obviously, hopefully what we did.
Yeah. And also it was just it felt like I could ask you any question, if it wasn't even to the house, if it was something to do with the solicitor or something to do, honestly, what are you cooking?
Yeah.
I felt comfortable enough that I could, so it's been a fantastic process, throughout.
Perfect.
With a lot of stagings, it is just a business. It's just, you're almost like your house is a number, but it's just a job for them just to pay the bills. It doesn't matter, there's a big company, if you aren't happy, they don't really care, but you're the one that gets affected by it. So I do feel like, with you guys, it's such a personal touch. It doesn't feel like, it just feels like almost two friends, but you're the one helping to sell the house.
Yeah, definitely. And that's feedback that we get quite frequently, is that we find that estate agents in a traditional sense can be quite departmental, where you deal with one person, you deal with another, you deal with another, and that you lose an element of service in there. And you do have to, there is a question mark over, are they on the journey with you? Well, they are until the next person takes over, where the one point of contact that a lot of people say they really like about us allows us to just be on that journey from sale agreed to when we're handing over the keys.
Yeah, it's been a phenomenal process. Yeah, it was really nice and day for us.
Alex, that is so helpful. I think your case study, especially with the journey that you've been on going through this process, will help a lot of people that will be on the similar journey that you're going to be to. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I'm glad we got you through in the end, and we got the price that the house was worth. So thank you very much for coming in.
It's been a fantastic process, and I think to anyone listening, I think it's okay to move if you're not happy to a different estate agent, because we wouldn't have got what we wanted without you guys. And I can't thank you enough.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you.